please help me welcome my first guest today, which is Melinda Smith, and she's the founder of Balance and Harmony 360 Squared. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here. So tell our listening audience and our viewing audience, what is Balance and Harmony 360 Squared, and how does it work, and kind of why did you get involved with it?
Well, one of the biggest aspects that I'm working on right now is called the Complete Guide for Balance and Harmony, and it focuses on finding ways to simplify life, being able to be more organized, streamlined, balanced, and being able to step back and look at life with a 360-degree perspective.
Okay, so help me understand the process. How do you begin the process? I don't want to give away your formula, obviously.
Right.
But how do you get started with something like that? Obviously, everyone has a complex life. Everyone's got crazy things going on, especially if you're watching this over the holidays. You're busier now than you are any other time of the year. So what's our first step in organizing the madness?
Well, the first step is being able to stand back and think about where you want to go.
Okay.
And where you're at. And my process will take you through a systematic process to get there. So it gets you to start slowing down and thinking about what is it that you really want.
Okay.
And then to prioritize and really to be able to get a crystal clear picture. I use something called a balance box, and it gets you to think about your life externally and internally. Because a lot of times what happens is we think about what we want, but we're never really quite sure how to get it.
Okay.
Or we're unsure of our own impact in making that happen or keeping us from having that happen. So it really gets you to start answering a lot of questions.
Excellent. So we hold ourselves accountable, and I think it's important to force yourself to prioritize things.
Yes.
Because I know every day I have a list on my Google Calendar of all things I have to do, and it's really hard to prioritize at the very beginning of the day, but that's how I function. And I think a lot of people struggle with, okay, I have all these things to do, or they don't have a list at all, and they just run through the day and like, oh my gosh, there's 10 things I didn't do. I can't believe I forgot to do this, and they have guilt. Right. And that adds to the whole challenge of getting through life and juggling things. So help me understand, what inspired you to start this? Are you juggling a crazy life and said there's got to be a better way, or did you know people that had trouble juggling life, or what inspired you?
Well, it started about 14 years ago.
Okay.
I've owned the company for 14 years, and I was a teacher, and life was definitely crazy. I was an at-risk teacher, so I helped students that were at risk of dropping out of high school. And I was talking with another teacher, and she was equally stressed, and so she kept talking about everything that she was balancing and all of her fears and concerns. And so we started talking, and the more I talked, she's like, oh my gosh, you should do this for a living.
Right.
And so that was kind of the beginning. She actually came down with stage 4 cancer a few months later, and that was in August, and by March she was gone, had left a 5-year-old at home. And so that was, coming home from that funeral was like a big aha moment, and I was like, it's going to change right now. So I told my husband I was going to quit, and I was going to do this full time. And when he picked his jaw up off the floor, I haven't looked back.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we could look back and say cancer physically killed her, but stress probably was
a
the one
huge,
that kind of got her in that cancer mode to begin with.
It is, and we are a society that is constantly trying to find quick fixes, and we're constantly trying to, instead of being preventative, we're always, trying to fix it when it's, sometimes too late.
Right.
And it can be devastating if you are not taking care of yourself and your sanity and your stress level. And it goes so much bigger than just a to-do list, because it's more about thinking about the bigger things. Because if you ever ask anyone at the end of their life, what they wish they did more of, never is it, oh, I wished I would have worked more, or I wished I would have, put in those extra hours at the office. It's usually experiences and relationships and, really loving life. And those are things that you can't always put a price tag on. So it's more than the to-do list.
Sure. It's trips they never took.
It is.
This place they wanted to go, they never had a chance. Just bucket list, so to
speak.
It
is. And it's family members that they've never really connected with on maybe a level, because we always say we'll do it tomorrow.
Right.
And for most people, tomorrow never happens.
So I'm sure a lot of people watching and listening, they're like, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. I put in my 70, 80 hours a week to build this legacy, to build this big company. I'll play later. But sometimes, like that teacher, playing never comes later. They're
Right.
taken way too quickly, too soon. So how does your program, let's see the program, you brought it here today, show the audience what it looks like, how it works.
Well, there's actually 8 pieces to it.
Okay.
And there is a book, and I know that there's a lot of people out there that love to read books.
Right.
And I know there's an equally large amount of people that are like, oh, I got to read a book.
And a lot of people like great books too.
Yes. So this one it's a very systematic process. It is very short chapters, and it's not really a book about reading. It's a book about doing. So I really, it is. I don't want you to like get to the beginning and go, okay, I got to race through this book and get it read. It's about taking it slow and really asking some deeper questions, which is what the workbook will kind of force you to do, is to really think about some of those deeper questions, and where am I at, and where do I want to go, and why do I do the things that I do, and then it starts getting you to think about, what are I talked about the balance box before, and this may be a little bit hard to kind of show you, but there's also a balance box that is very similar to a vision board.
Okay.
Because a lot of times people have a lot of trouble being able to picture. They can't tell me what it is they really want. And if you don't spend time thinking about what it's going to look like, you'll never know when you get there, and you don't know what you're working for. Mm-hmm. So the visual will help you start describing it in a picture.
Okay.
And the balance box also goes internally, because unfortunately we are usually our own worst enemy. Sure. And if we don't ever look at some of those behaviors that keep us from being successful, then the external goals never happen.
So that it's a combination of short-term and long-term goals, but with visual images to go with them.
It is. It's really about, because a lot of times people get overwhelmed because they want to do something, like they want to write a book, or they want to, maybe do something different in their career or their business. You have to have that end goal in mind. But what the book does is it says, okay, here's your end picture. This is what it's going to look like. But then how do I get there? And that's what the whole rest of the program is really about. It's about getting you to create that picture and then step back and create it in small, break it down into small manageable pieces. So all of a sudden it doesn't seem overwhelming. We start talking about, once you get to the focus journal, we start talking about what are you doing every day that's making that bigger picture a reality.
Okay.
And it also has you look at, I have something called an energy map. And this is the part that really gets you to think about, there's more than one thing in life. And for a lot of entrepreneurs, is we're so focused on the wealth and the prosperity that relationships suffer, their health suffers. It's exactly what we've been talking about for this interview. So this gets you to look at 9 integral areas of your life. And the focus journal, as you're going through it, will really get you to start balancing that even though life may be crazy in one of those areas to this week, not really going to make a big significant on the bigger picture if it just is 1 week. But what happens for a lot of people is 1 week turns into 2, which turns into a month, which turns into a year, and it's the bigger things. And then there's also a what is on your plate. A lot of times people are so...
on the bigger side?
No, but it is split between work, home, and you.
Okay, good.
And what happens with a lot of the entrepreneurs...
The size, like right here.
Yes. Well, what happens is the work and the home tend to take over.
Right.
And for a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, the you part is like non-existent. And that goes back to really thinking about what makes you happy. What is at the end of your life are you really wanting to appreciate? And a lot of that comes from the you part. Mm-hmm. And that's easily to neglectful.
I'm guessing too, just coming from a married perspective, I bet you if you had the husband fill out the what's on my plate and the wife fill out what's on my plate, you have some incredible dialogue about what the husband thinks should be on his plate, what the wife thinks should be on his plate, and so on and so forth. This could almost be a relationship tool as well.
It could. And some of my favorite clients are clients I have both husband and wife.
Okay.
Because a lot of times that's another reason why things don't happen, is because everybody thinks the other person is going to do it, right, and they don't. And so it gets someone on this end of the spectrum and someone on this end of the spectrum, bringing them together and saying, what is our bigger master plan, and then working through, how that's going to get achieved and how it's going to happen. And so instead of talking about it, we're starting to do.
Making plans.
The focus is on the do part.
Is there a plate for the kids too, or just the adults?
Well, the kids fall under the home part.
Okay.
So.
I mean, I want my kids to each have a plate of their own.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Because they have to contribute as well. And that's one of the big challenges is at what point can you add things to their plate? My wife and I have this discussion all the time.
Right.
What should an 8-year-old be able to do? What should a 4-year-old be able to do? What should an 11-year-old be able to do? What should a 14-year-old, 15-year-old be able to do? A 17-year-old? And she grew up in which she had a lot of responsibility because she was the oldest.
Right.
I was also the oldest, but I was a boy, and my mom did most of it for me.
Right.
So my focus is, hey, get good grades, do your sport, and as long as grades are good, life is good. Now, obviously, if you can do the dishes, you can take out the trash, that saves other people from doing it. But it's interesting to hear what parents think of their kids should be able to do at certain ages. My kids do their own laundry, they do the dishes. They're very independent. I mean, they could be independent adults right now.
Right.
But at some point, at what age do you start teaching those type of skills? And I think it also
It's never
determines
too early.
what's on the plate.
Right.
But I don't want to overburden them either. I want them to enjoy their childhood.
Right.
So it's such a fine line of
It
what's
is.
teaching maturity, what's teaching responsibility, and what's being overly burdensome for an 8-year-old
Right.
or an 11-year-old.
Well, there's nothing worse for children of having too much responsibility or no responsibility. I mean, it's definitely,
I blame
and even as adults.
Like, go play outside.
Yeah, because it's hard for them to function as adults if they've never learned the process. And I think, we have a lot of adults that, maybe did not have responsibility early enough. And so this type of stuff is very hard for them because they never had to manage responsibility.
Right. I'm sure some of those men that are out there watching the show, they're still living at home with mama and you've already graduated college. This is you. You need to have a bigger plate when you're younger. You wouldn't be living with mama anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you found that to be true or not, but I know of several cases in that situation. But
Right.
it seems like the women have more on their plate growing up, and they have more responsibilities, and tend to be, once they leave the house, they're less likely to come back home.
Right.
Us guys, I put myself in that same boat that, once I left my house, I never went back.
Yeah.
But because my parents moved across the country, so it made it a lot harder for me to go back. It's just important, I think, to have those commitments and have those responsibilities and be able to step up and be your own person and be responsible for all the expenses that you have on a daily basis and so on and so forth. So what else is in the box? There's still
And
more things.
the last thing is
It's like an
just
endless
transfer
box. I know you guys
cards.
can't see the inside of the box, but it's pretty exciting.
The last one is the transfer cards, and this really, because the whole program gets you to think about how can I balance work, how can I balance home, how can I balance you. And so these cards are reminders. I take you through a transformation process in the second phase of the book, and these are just reminder cards as you get to work on the work, the home, and the you part.
Okay, so that comes to our kind of our big question of the show. How do you balance, and I'm sure all of you listening and watching, that's the word of the day, the phrase of the day. How do you balance work life and your personal life in a way that everything's harmonious? Is there a secret recipe? I know it's in the book, and I know I don't want to give away any secret sauce, but is there anything, just advice you can get, one tip to the listeners out there that can help them better balance their work and their personal life? I think everyone struggles with it, myself included, being an entrepreneur, having a business, having kids, having a wife, and everyone wants me to do everything, but I also am committed to my business because that's what pays the bills.
Right.
So how do we juggle it all? How do we balance it?
Well, I'm going to answer that in a twofold question.
No problem. I'm writing it down.
Okay.
I suggest you guys write it down as well.
The first one is that you have to realize you have a choice.
Okay.
And I think sometimes we forget how much of a great country we live in, and we do have choices. And we have, for most people, probably too many choices.
Right.
So just keeping an open mind of saying, this is my choice, and not feeling like you have no choices at all. Because a lot of times we want to think we don't have a choice when everything is a choice. You have a choice about where you work. You have a choice about what you do every day, where you go, how you spend your time. And that is huge, to realize that you have a choice. And once you can understand that, the biggest thing that you can do is write your plan down. And you have been told that for centuries now.
Write your plan.
And people still refuse to write it down. When you start writing down a plan,
like a business plan?
Not
or just a personal plan?
just a plan
Okay.
of where do I want to go. I mean, it goes back to the balance box and creating that picture. You have to, people just want to just keep on getting on the hamster wheel, and they just keep going around and around and around. They convince themselves they don't have any choices, and they just keep going on the hamster wheel. You have to stop the hamster wheel. You have to set your plan and say, this is my priority. And remember, it's about choices. You can't do everything today. So simplify, make a choice about what is really the big thing in life. If a big thing in life for you is to spend more time with your children, then you may need to do radical things and really think about where you live, how you spend your money. Because people can live on this much money and they can live on this much money.
Sure.
So again, it's your choice whether you want the fancy cars, whether you want a more expensive home, whether you want to work 70 or 80 hours a week, if you want to work less. So a lot of times it's about choices.
So would you say a lot of marital issues and relationship issues come down to people wanting different choices? They just can't come together?
I would say that's a big part of it, but even bigger is probably the lack of communication.
Okay.
Of not being open.
The choices they want to make?
Well, just about the choices and the things that they want in life and being able to come together.
Okay.
That if you're in a relationship, each person has to make 2 steps together.
Right.
You can't expect one person to come all the way, and communicating about what are those hopes and dreams and being able to come together with that and then be able to form a plan based on that.
Very good. And I think everyone listening and watching understands what they need to do. Now the question is, what are you waiting for? Start doing it, right? 2018 is around the corner, and no better time than a New Year's resolution than to take steps to think about the choices you're making, think about the choices you want to make in 2018. Obviously, fitness is always a big one in 2018. Every New Year's resolution involves getting fitter, getting healthier. But commit to your plan, write it down, and that way you can hold yourself accountable.
And find accountability if that's an issue for
You
you.
can find an accountability partner that
Right.
can hold you accountable. Like, see, you wrote down. You better
And the
stick to it.
nice one doesn't always help.
That's true.
The ones that say, that's okay.
It's a little plug for personal trainers out there.
Yes.
Make sure you're accountable to your fitness goals. Now, tell all of our listeners and viewers how they can get a hold of this incredible transformation program, the Balance and Harmony 360 Squared. How can they find the program?
You can go to www.balanceharmony.com, and I have a store
You do.
on my website, and they can order it from there.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back to the Perky Collar Radio and TV show. I want to thank Miss Melinda Smith for being here today and educating all of us so we can have great New Year's resolutions involving balance and harmony in our life in 2018. Hopefully it'll lead to a healthier life, just being more balanced. And I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll be right back. Take a couple minutes to talk about my business and some of the things that I'm doing. Give you a reason to tune in each week. So I'm an inventor. Everyone's like to say they've met an inventor. It's something special. I just decided to solve a problem and create a solution instead of complaining about the problem. So I created a product called the Perky Collar. It is a collar support system for dress shirts. The packaging is right here. And what the product does, it lifts the collar up. So if I'm not wearing a tie, I can maintain a high collar professional look. So what it looks like is this. It has a nice magnetic lid for the box, so you can store accessories in here. And this is what the tool looks like. Nothing fancy, but it does a great job of lifting the collar up so it doesn't droop and sag. Let me show you how it works. So this is how you want your shirt to look if you're not wearing a tie. But you can see as soon as I remove the collar support, how quickly the placket starts to fold, the collar starts to tuck under. It just looks sloppy. And if I went to any downtown of any city across the country, 90% of the men are walking out like this unless they have ties on. And the tie is almost dead. So because it's dead, I decided to come up with a product that can help people not wear a tie, but not look sloppy at the same time. So here's how it works. Lift the collar up. You want to leave your collar stays in because collar stays prevent collars from curling. That's a different problem. Take the Perky collar, drop it down, and then put the collar down on top of it. And that's it. And now you're back to a nice high collar professional look. Sometimes you adjust this a little bit to make sure it's even. And there goes the folded placket. There goes the tucking under my blazer. And it's back to a nice, clean, crisp look. Now, where can you find the Perky collar? I'm sure that's the question you're about to ask. Let me answer that question for you. It's PerkyLLC.com, spelled PerkyLLC.com. So this product's been on the market for about 2.5 years. We've now sold 10,020 as of today. And looking forward to our next 10,000 sold. To complement the Perky collar, I've also reached out to other inventors all across the country to complement the Perky collar. And I met a gentleman out of St. Louis, Missouri, named Cedric Cobb, and he invented what's called the best pocket square holder. So he sells a perky collar on his websites and shows. I sell his pocket square holder on my website, and that way people looking for innovation can find innovation on his website along with innovation on my website. So his product looks like this. It's called the best pocket square holder, and here's what it does. It solves the problem of the droopy, saggy pocket squares. So pocket squares, when you fold them, they always unfold and always fall down in your jacket pocket. So this device looks like this. You simply squeeze the device, drop the folded pocket square or pocket round in the device. It locks it in place. And then because the height of the pocket square holder, it just drops right into the pocket, keeping it perfectly looking great and not having to mess with it over and over again throughout the day. And that's the pocket square holder. Both items sell for $25 on the website. Again, you're talking $50 total for both items, but they make a world of difference. If you haven't bought holiday gifts yet for the men in your life that just are hard to buy for, these are two great innovative products that I'm sure they would truly enjoy. I'm not finished yet. We also have what's called button-up collar stays. Now, collar stays are around since the 1950s. I'm tired of talking about collar stays. Well, these collar stays are different. This is a gentleman out of Wichita, Kansas. His name is Mike Fisher, and he invented a collar stay, but it has an added function of a hook on the end. And that's to help you fasten buttons on your sleeve, as well as help you fasten maybe the top button of your shirt. And especially for older people that have dexterity issues, arthritis, carpal tunnel, this can be a real challenge, a real difficulty each and every day. And if your wife's not there to help you or your child's not there to help you, you want to be able to dress yourself each and every day. So this becomes a great tool. And then for younger guys out there, you just use it as a collar stay. If you're an older gentleman, use it to button your sleeve buttons and then use it as a collar stay. So this little pack here has stainless steel collar stays. You have 3 different sizes because obviously every collar is different lengths. And it's metal, so you don't have to worry about it causing your collars to curl. It's a great complement to the perky collar because the perky collar does not prevent collars from curling. You need to wear collar stays. So why not wear button-up collar stays that can also help you fasten your buttons at the same time? So that's the button-up collar stays. These are $20, also available on perkyllc.com. Next up is holeless belts. And I'm sure you're all thinking, oh, I've seen the Mission belt on Shark Tank. I've seen that. Well, this is different. This is 100% cowhide. That's one of the biggest differences. It's the same type of leather they use on the saddles of horses. So it's much thicker, stronger leather. There's no ratchet system here, unlike the Comfort Click belt that's all over TV right now. Instead, the technology is in the buckle. So all you're going to simply do is you're going to put the belt through and it locks in place. Now, it's holiday time. We're all gaining weight, let's be honest. Okay? So what we do, instead of having to go up an inch or down an entire inch based on our weight fluctuation, we just simply tilt the buckle a little bit, bring it in a little bit. If I lost a little weight, and it locks back in place. If I just had a big holiday meal, I loosen it a teensy bit, back in place. Again, I don't have to go up or down an entire inch. These are beautiful. They come in brown, which is what I have here. They come in cognac, which is what I have displayed here. And they also come in black. They are a limited supply. They are very hard to get a hold of for whatever reason. But I do have about a dozen left to service the community. And I can guarantee you, whoever you give this belt to will never wear a whole belt again because it's a frustration to have to poke your own holes, to stretch the holes out because you gain a little weight, lose a little weight. The belt never fits right. We don't gain weight by 1 inch increments. So why we have a belt that only goes up or down by an inch? So those are all the innovative products that we have on the website. And in closing, we also have some fashion items on our website because we realize that people that are buying innovative products also like to look good with different pocket squares, different pocket rounds. Well, my wife makes all of our pocket squares and pocket rounds. They're also all available on our website, perkyllc.com. And here's an example of one of her pocket rounds. Those of you who've never seen a pocket round before, it's the same as a pocket square, just circular. But you notice it's two-sided. No one else does that. You notice the stitch work is 2 different colors. We got light blue on one side and kind of a royal blue on the other. But again, when folded, it really becomes a work of art. So just to kind of give you a quick example of how beautiful a pocket round is, this is an example. And then when you use the pocket square holder, it prevents the pocket square from unfolding, or pocket round, again in this case, from unfolding. So when you put it in the pocket, it stays perfect all day long. So again, pocket squares, pocket rounds, all handmade, all limited edition on the website. We've also added some pre-tied and self-tied bow ties. They're all limited edition, all very unique. We also have some little bow tie lapel buttons. These actually are buttons that go in the lapel of a jacket to act as a color accent, to bring out a color maybe in the pinstripe, a color in your shirt, color in your pocket square, pocket round, just a great little accent. And again, it's not a pin. It's actually a button that goes in the buttonhole. And then finally we have some silk scarves that were designed by my 17-year-old daughter. is an incredibly gifted artist. So we took her canvas paintings and turned them into 60 by 20 and 50 by 50 scarves. And then for the men, we created some 16-inch by 16-inch pocket squares that are beautiful to put into your jacket pocket of your blazer. Again, you've been watching the Perky Collar radio and TV show here on the Wake Up Call Network. I thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you tune in again next week. And until then, we'll see you next time.